This video is a summary of 3 tutorials on AI development with OpenAI that I uploaded recently on my YouTube channel. The first project is built with Python using Django framework, where we create a translator solution showing also how to build a simple chatbot. The second project is also built with Python using Django framework, and it's all about generating images from the user input and storing them in the database. The third project is built with React.js, where we create a chatbot that can answer specific requests. Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to use ChatGPT with Python in order to translate some inputs to the Spanish language. We will be using Django, probably most popular Python web framework, in order to do this simple example. So let's see how this actually works. I'm going to type, "What is your name?" And here we have the response. "How are you today?" And again, here is the translation. Also, I'm going to show you how to ask any question to ChatGPT and also how you can limit the responses from ChatGPT. So it's not only going to be about translating instructions to the Spanish language. So without further ado, let's get started. Now let's take a look at what have I done so far. And I just want to mention that this is going to be an extremely simple example with no database interactions. So we won't store inputs and outputs in the DB. We could do this, of course, but we are going to skip this for simplicity purposes. So actually what I have over here is a basic Django project, and I added a templates directory for our base HTML and main HTML, which will inherit from this base HTML. And then I also added some instructions for the templates, so Django can find the additional templates that we've placed over here. And this is basically it. If we take a look at the base HTML, this is a bootstrap template which has been adjusted a little bit with this div and the block content inside of it, so we can actually inherit from this particular template. And the only template which will inherit from this base HTML will be the main HTML, and I did it because of the readability purposes, so it will be easier for you to follow along from this than from this, okay? So the plan for the rest of the video is to install the necessary dependencies, and we will need OpenAI and python.env. Next, we will get the API key from OpenAI. We will create a view inside of our main project folder. So inside of this core directory, we will create a views.py file and create necessary view, which will interact with our main HTML. So once we create this view, we will go to the main HTML and do some coding over there. And finally, we will test our solution with different instructions. So let's begin with installing OpenAI. So pip install -- upgrade OpenAI. Let's paste it over here. Let's install it. And then we will also need the python.env in order to read our OpenAI key, which will be placed in the env file. So if we want to obtain this key from the env file, we will need python.env for this. So let's install it as well. All right, so the next thing to do is to go to beta.openai.com accounts API keys. And we simply need to create an account, and then we just need to press create new security key, all right? And then if we go to usage, we can see that we are granted with $18 credit, which will expire. In my case, it will expire on the 1st of April 2023. Okay. And if you would like to create a paid account, you just need to go to billing, view the different pricing options, provide a payment method, and start using OpenAI professionally. So it's really cool that we have the opportunity to test things out with the free trial. And now we need to grab our API key and place it in the .env file. So now let's go to our project folder, to Visual Studio Code. Let's create a .env file, and then let's create an OpenAI key, and inside of the quotation marks, insert your secret key from OpenAI. I'm going to do it right now. As the next step, let's go to core, let's create a views.py file over here, and let's paste in all the necessary imports. So we will be using a function view, that's why we will need render. Then we are importing OpenAI and OS. With the use of OS, we will get our environment variable, but we also need for this .env. So we are importing from .env load.env, and we are calling load.env over here. And now we can create an open, or let's call it just an API key. And this is going to be equal os get env, and we will try to get the OpenAI key. And otherwise, we will simply have this API key set to none. All right, now we can create a function view called chatbot. Not chatboy, but chatbot, which takes in a request, and we will return render the request. Then we will need to provide the template name. In our case, this is going to be the main HTML. And here we will have for now an empty dictionary, because currently we don't have anything that we can pass to our main HTML. Let's create a variable called chatbot response, and initially let's set it to none. And now we will do a simple check if the API key is not none, and if the request method is equal to post, then we are going to work with the OpenAI platform. First of all, we will need to grab the user input. So the user input is going to be the only input in our form placed in the main HTML. This is going to be the place where the user writes instructions. So for example, translate this kind of sentence to the Spanish language, for example. Okay, so we will see how this works in practice. So here, let's write request and then post get, and we will have the user input field named as user input. So we will see how this works in just a second. We will also need to set the OpenAI key to this API key. So maybe above, let's write OpenAI API key, and let's set it to this API key. Okay. So this is the second step. Now what we need to do is to write some instructions. So as a general instruction, we will create a variable prompt and set it to the user input. All right. So we won't be doing any translation just yet. We are just going to provide some general instructions. So at this moment, you can literally ask anything to the OpenAI platform. All right. Finally, we need to create a response. And we will do this with the OpenAI and then completion create. Here we need to specify the engine, and this is going to be text DaVinci 003. And then if we go to the OpenAI platform and if we visit pricing, I think we have some language models, and we see that ADA is the fastest. However, the DaVinci is the most powerful. So we are using an engine from the DaVinci model right now. Okay, so let's go back. And as the next step, we will pass the prompt, so the instruction. All right, prompt. Then we will have the max tokens. We are going to set it to 256, and basically we will get a response with maximum 256 words, okay? We can also provide a stop. So with stop, if we write an instruction and, for example, the stop will be set to dot. So if the instruction is translate something from English to Spanish, and we will write a sentence like hello world dot, and then how are you? Then it will stop on hello world, and we will return a translated hello world, okay? How are you is going to be ignored. So what I'm going to do is to actually comment the stop for now, and I'm also going to put in temperature set to 0.5, and with the temperature setting we control the level of creativity and variation. So a lower temperature will result in more conservative and predictable output, but the higher temperature will result in a more diverse and creative output. So you can simply play around with this setting. All right, and this is going to be our response. What we are going to do right now is to simply print the response, and we can now focus on the main HTML. So I'm going to save this views.py file. We are not done yet, but we can simply test it out if it's working or not if we finish our main HTML first. So in the blog content, what we will need right now is maybe an H3. This is going to be write an instruction. We will later change it for translating to Spanish. For now, let's leave it like this. And then form method is equal to post. We also will need a CSRF token, and we need to put in the input, which is going to be type text. We will have a class equal to form control from Bootstrap. And I missed a quotation mark. All right. And then we'll set the name to user input. So we can actually grab it like this over here. All right. So the next thing is to have a button which will submit this form. So I'm just going to copy mine very fast and paste it. All right. So now let's save this. We are not done with this main HTML file just yet, because we will need to render the response below the form. But for now, this is enough. And we can go to the URLs PY. And here we just need to import our view. So let's do it very quickly. And we need to place this view in the URL patterns. All right. So let's save this and run Python manage py run server. And if, okay, so in the views py, it should be like this, without the if, and there it is. So we can write an instruction, hello world, submit, let's see. Yes, and there it is. So we have, this is actually working. We have the response. The response is over here. Hello world, it's nice to meet you. Perfect. Let's do something else. Let's write, how are you doing? I'm doing well, thanks for asking. How about you? Okay, let's ask something more specific. Who is the director of the first Harry Potter movie? All right. And the director of the first Harry Potter movie is Chris Columbus. All right, this is working. So what we need to do next is actually to grab this text as the response and pass it to the template so we can actually display it in the template down here below. So this is going to be pretty easy. Below the print with the response, we can create a chatbot response, which is going to be set to response and then choices. So we need to go to choices and then grab this text. So in order to do this, we just need to write choices, 0, and then text. Okay. And then as a response, we are going to return the chatbot response. All right. So now we can move to main HTML and we can simply do a check if the response exists, and then we can display it with the save filter. All right. So let's try it out right now. Who is the director of the first Harry Potter movie? Or let's change it and let's write third. Okay, submit. The director of the third Harry Potter movie is Alfonso Cuarón. Okay, it seems to be working. So right now you can ask any question to this chatbot. I'm going to add a break line over here. And right now, as mentioned before, you can ask any question. Let's now do a little bit more specific example. So what we want to do is to tell ChatGPT to translate whatever we input in our input field, okay? So how to do this? Well, we need to go back to our views PY. We can comment out our prompt as a general instruction. And let's create a new prompt with a little bit more specific instruction. So we will use the F string, and here we can simply write translate this text from English to Spanish. Okay, and or we don't need to actually put in English. We can just write translate this text to Spanish, and then we can write it in any language and it will be translated to Spanish. And then we just need to put in the user input. Okay, so let's save this and let's test it out. I'm going to refresh, and how are you? And there it is, okay? And then I'm going to write it in Polish. And it's the same. And let's translate it. And there it is. Okay, so this is working. Now let's comment this out, and I'm just going to paste a different prompt. If the question is related to weather, answer it user input. Else say can't answer this. Okay, so first of all, ChatGPT doesn't have access to real life data. This is AI which is trained on some data, on huge amounts of data, but I think it's trained until some month of 2021. So it won't be able to provide you with the real data. For example, if I ask, what is the weather right now in New York, it won't be able to give you precise information about this. But we will try and we will see what the response is going to be. But anyway, this is an example how you can limit the response of the ChatGPT. So if you want the ChatGPT only to return an answer on specific topics, you can do it like this. If the question is related to something, answer it, and otherwise just write can't answer this. So I'm going to save this and we will check this out. How are you? Or let's do it like this. How are you? And we have now can't answer this. What is the weather in Alicante? The current weather in Alicante is sunny with a high of 25 degrees and low of 17 degrees Celsius. So I'm currently in Alicante and the weather is sunny. However, there's no way the weather is 17 up to 25 degrees. It's much colder than this. So it's giving an answer based on historical data. The current word is a little bit misleading, okay? But anyway, this is just an example how you can limit the response from ChatGPT. And I think we can finish off over here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel, and we will see each other in the next video. Take care and bye-bye. Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the OpenAI API in your Python Django projects in order to generate images from text. So let me show you what exactly we are going to create. I'm going to type a cool bull buying Bitcoin cartoon style. Let's press submit. Here we have the result, and this image will be also stored in the DB. So here we have a cool bull buying Bitcoin cartoon style, and this is the result. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so in order to create an AI solution to generate images from text, we will be using the OpenAI API, and we will work mainly on this particular function. With that being said, if you haven't seen my previous video on how to use ChatGPT with Python and Django, I would encourage you to visit my YouTube channel and find this particular video, how to use ChatGPT with Python. Over there, we discussed the basics, how to obtain the secret key from OpenAI, how to store it in the environmental file, how to load it from the .env file, how to install OpenAI. We also discussed the base HTML file, which is going to be the same for this video and for the previous one. And then the main HTML, which is going to be extremely similar. So we have the difference in the h3 tag, and then we will have difference in the response. So this main HTML file basically just inherits from base HTML, and it has a simple form, and then below the form it will give us an output. The difference between those two videos is that this time we are actually storing the results in the database. So if we go to the images application, to the models.py file of this directory, we can see an image class with two fields, phrase and AI image. The phrase is going to be the instruction for generating the image, and it's going to come from the user input. And then the AI image is going to be the generated image itself. So now let's go back to the views.py file and continue working on this generate image from text function. So the first thing I'm going to do is to check if the API key is not none, and if the request method is equal to post. Okay, request method like this. Okay, and then if this is the case, we are going to generate the response from the OpenAI. So we have OpenAI already imported. So OpenAI and then image and then create. And here we are going to set the prompt as user input. So we need to get the user input. Let's do it above. User input is equal to request post get user input. Okay, so here we are referring to the name of the main HTML file. We are looking at the form input, and here is the name user input. So we are grabbing it over here. And now we can set the prompt, we can set the instruction to user input. And we need to set the size of the image. So we can select, for example, 256 by 256 or 512 by 512 or 1024 times 1024. Okay, so I'm going to go with the smallest size. And basically what I'm going to do next is simply to print out the response. Let's save this. And let's try this out. So I'm going to type in cute puppy in space. I'm going to press submit. Let's wait for the response. Okay, and there it is. So what we need to do is now to refer to the data URL. Okay, so this is going to be our image. So yeah, let's go back, and below the response, let's create a variable image URL, and this is going to be response and then data 0 URL. Okay, as the next step, let's bring in requests and let's fetch this image URL. So I'm going to create another variable called just the same way as over here, response, and this is going to be requests and then get, and we want to pass in the image URL. All right, so if everything goes okay, here we should have the status of a response with the status of 200. So let's actually print out the response. Let's save this, and again, this time I'm going to put in cute kitty in Spain. Okay, and there it is. We have the response of 200. All right, so as the next step, what we will need to do is to import content file. So somewhere over here, let's bring content file from Django core files base. We want to import content file, and we want to pass in the response content to this content file. So let's do it straight away. I'm going to create a new variable called image file, and this is going to be equal content file, where we are going to pass in the response content, just like this. All right, and I did it in the wrong place, of course. It should be underneath this response. Sorry about this, guys. So let's actually delete the prints. All right, let's continue. So we have the image file. Now we need to set the file name. And I'm going to refer to the number of objects in our database. So we need to bring in our image class from images.models. Let's import this image class. And what I'm going to do is to count them first. So image objects count. And then I'm going to add 1. So if there are no images, this is going to be the first image. And the f name is going to be created with the f string. The base name is going to be image or AI image, whatever. And then I'm going to pass in the count, and the format is going to be JPG. Okay, so now we have the file name, and we need to create a new Django instance, a new image instance with this generated image. So let's do it right now. I'm going to set a new variable obj, and initially it will be set to none. And if API is not none and request method is equal to post, we are going to work with this image, this obj variable and the image class, and we are going to set the praise as user input. Next, we are going to refer to the obj AI image. We are going to call the save method over here, pass in the file name as well as the image file. All right, and now we can simply save the image, and yeah, we can simply print out the image, the obj, sorry. Okay, so let's save this and let's see if this will be working. So I'm already logged into the Django administration. Currently, there are no images. Let's write again, cute kitty in Spain. All right, let's hit refresh. Cute kitty in Spain, and there it is. Okay, so I don't know if this is Spain, but let's do cute puppy in space. We need to go back. And there it is. Okay, so this is working. And the final part is to actually display the result below the form. For this, I'm just going to go to the main HTML, and I'm going to copy and paste a very simple code, checking if the object exists. If it does, we are displaying first the object phrase. So what instruction did we give? And then we have a break line and the object image displayed as image. So let's try it out again. Let's hit refresh and let's write kitty in space cartoon style. Submit. And we don't see the results. And this is because we didn't pass the object to the template. So we need to write object, and to this object key assign the obj value. Now let's save this and try it once again. Kitty in space cartoon style. And there it is. Okay, so this is working. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel, and we will see each other hopefully in the next video. Take care and bye-bye. Hi guys, in this video we are going to create our own chatbot using the OpenAI platform with React.js, and let me demonstrate what we are going to exactly build. So over here I have a simple form with one input, that is a user input, and here we can ask the chatbot anything. So I'm just going to type hello, and I'm going to submit the form as the question type set to general. Let's wait a few seconds, and there it is. Hi there, how can I help you? Next, let's translate this hello to Spanish. And there we have the result. Next, let's change the question type to weather. I'm going to press submit. And we have can't answer this. But if I ask, what is the weather in Portugal? We will have a response related to the weather in Portugal. The weather in Portugal is generally mild with temperatures ranging from the mid-50s to the mid-70s Fahrenheit. Alright guys, so this is what we are going to create. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, before we get started, let's take a look at what have I done so far. So I started a brand new React application with npx create React app. The name of my application is chatbot app, and I also added Bootstrap. So to be more precise, React Bootstrap. Let's go to the official React Bootstrap documentation, and in order to install it, you need to run npm install React Bootstrap and also import the CSS. So I did it exactly as it is over here, and you can see it in my app.js file. Now what we need to do is to install two additional dependencies, the OpenAI and .env. So let's go ahead and access the terminal, quit the development server from running, and npm install OpenAI and .env. Once the installation is complete, simply run the development server again using npm start. Next, let's head over to the platform OpenAI.com in order to create a secret key. We are going to keep this secret key in the .env file, which we are going to create in just a few seconds. And then with the use of the .env package, we are going to read its value to the app.js file. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and over here in the source directory, let's create a .env file, and then inside of this .env file, let's write React app and then OpenAI key. And here, within those two quotation marks, place your secret key obtained from OpenAI. Right? Back in app.js file, we are now going to check if we can actually obtain the value of the key from our .env file. So over here, I'm going to run process.env and then React app OpenAI key. I think it was like this. And then I'm going to perform slice and just grab a few characters over here, okay? So I'm going to save this and then go back to our app, and there is a problem. All right, so I restarted the development server, and here are the first 5 characters of my OpenAI API key. All right, let's go back, and now what we can do is to create a configuration object that we will use in our fetch method later on. So in order to do this, we need to import configuration from OpenAI. Configuration, I need to import it manually, I think. Import from OpenAI, and we want to import configuration. There it is, and then we can set a new variable called configuration. Set it to new configuration and set the API key to process.env React app OpenAI key. All right. As the next step, let's take a look at the state variables that are required for our project. So first of all, we are going to set a question type. By default, we are going to set it as general. So we need the useState hook. Let's set the default to general, and then let's assign this general to the question type. And then we will have a set question type to update the state, to update these values, okay? So this is the first thing. Then we will have the chatbot response. So initially, it's going to be set to an empty string. And let's write it like this. We will assign to the empty string the CB as chatbot response. And then we will have set CB response to update the value. Next, we will have the user input. User input and set user input. And this is also going to be initially an empty string. Okay, and then we will have an indicator for waiting on the response. So we will have is loading and set is loading. And initially it's going to be false. Okay, so once we submit a user input with a specific question type, this will change to true. We will see a spinner, and once we get the response, we will change this back to false. Before we create some functions within our app component, let's work a little bit on the return statement. So what we want to return instead of hello world and this first 5 characters of the OpenAI key is, first of all, create a row. And within this row, we are going to map the question types. So I'm going to create a list, an array with the types that are available for selecting a question type. So we will have general, okay. Then the next one is going to be translate. And then we are going to have the weather. And then we are going to loop through them with map. And we are going to return. And then what we are going to return is a column. So we need to import call. And we are going to set the key as the element. And within this call, we are going to use a button. Okay. And the button will have a variant of primary. We will then specify the onClick. All right. And then here we will simply display the element like this. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. And row is not defined, so it didn't do the auto import row. And I think we also need to place in the button over here. Okay, let's try it once again. Button has already been declared. Here it is, okay. All right, so we have general, translate, and weather. Now this is working. Let's go back, and below this row, let's just write h3, and here we will have maybe a class name of my. So we want to add some margin to the top and bottom, and we want to add a margin of 3. Inside, we are going to place question type, and with the bold, we will simply display whatever the question type is. So by default, it's going to be general. I'm going to save this, go back, and there it is. Okay, we have in bold font the question type set as general. So what we can do right now is to set a question type with the on-click to a specific button that we clicked. So in our case, we just need to write set question type, and let's pass in the element. So let's see if this works. Translate weather general. All right. As the next step, below this H3, let's create a form. So let's import it this time manually. And then below the H3 tag, as mentioned before, we are going to create a form with an onSubmit. OnSubmit, there it is. For now, I'm just going to leave it empty. And we will create the onSubmit handler in just a second. Then let's add form control. Okay. And here we will have type text. Then we will have the value set to the user input. And now we need an onChange handler. So in order to update the user input, we will have an event and then set user input to target value. Okay. So let's go ahead and save this. And I think this is a self-closing component, so we can do it like this. Let's save this and let's see if this will work. All right, so right now we are able to provide user input. However, we aren't able to submit this user input. So let's add a button below the form control. We already imported button. And here we will have a variant of info. And the type, I'm using caps lock, sorry guys. Variant info. And then type is going to be equal submit. All right. And then we will also provide a class name of margin top 3. And let's just name it submit. All right. Let's save this. And there it is. Okay, so now we need to create a handler for submitting the form. So somewhere over here, let's create a handle send data function. And this handle send data function will be async. And it will be async for us to handle promises because we are going to use the fetch method and we will handle the fetch method which returns a promise with async await syntax. So what I'm going to do over here is pass an event, and then I'm going to prevent default. So this form doesn't get sent and the page doesn't get reloaded. And now I'm going to assign handle send data to the onSubmit. All right, and let's also console log form is submitted. Let's save this. Let's refresh and check inspect. Go to the console, test. Submit, form is submitted. All right, this is working. All right, so now that we can collect user input and submit the form, we can now prepare some more specific instructions for the chatbot. So I'm going to create a function called getInstructions. And this function will use the switch case syntax. And here we will set a variable called prompt. But what's important, this function will also accept the question type and input. And the input is going to be the user input passed in the handle send data, and this will ensure that the correct value is being passed even if the state hasn't updated yet. Okay, so let's now continue with our switch case. We will perform the switch on the question type, and the first case is going to be general. If the case is going to be general, then we are going to set the prompt directly to the input, and then we are going to simply break, and then we will take care of the next case, which in our case is going to be translate. If this is going to be the case, we will modify the input inside of the prompt by giving it instruction to translate. So in our case, we will simply write translate this text to Spanish. Okay, and then we will pass in the input over here. Just so you know, I'm using backticks, so you can, using backticks, inject the variable like I did over here. All right, and then we are going to break and focus on the next case, which is going to be the weather. So let's add weather, and here we are going to set the prompt to, again, using backticks, we will write if the question is related to weather, answer it. And here we will inject the input once again. And after the comma, we will add else say can't answer this. All right. So let's also add a break. Then let's set the default to prompt equal to input. And then finally, let's return the prompt. So now in handle send data, we can create a const prompt. And here, let's use the get instructions. And then we are going to pass in the question type as well as the user input, just to ensure that the correct values for the question type and the user input are being passed to get instructions. All right, and then we will receive the prompt from over here. As the next step, let's also set an endpoint. So this is going to be where we are going to set our fetch method URL. And we are going to use the text DaVinci engine. So I'm just going to paste the endpoint over here. So API OpenAI.com version 1 engines text DaVinci 003 completions. Okay. All right. What we are missing right now are the params. So we are going to create a params object at the very top, maybe above the configuration. And here we are going to set the temperature, and I'm going to set it to 0.5. So the temperature sets the level of randomness in the AI model's output. So it's from 0 to 1, but the higher the value, the more creative and unexpected results we will get, okay? Then we will have the max tokens, and I'm going to set it to 256. This is the max words we are going to receive the response. So if it's 256, that means there won't be more than 256 words, okay? And yeah, right now, if we go back, we can go back to our handle set data. We can now use these params into the body, but we also need to add the prompt. So let's create a const body. And with the use of spread operator, let's put in our params. And then let's also add the prompt. Okay. And right now we can create a const response, use the await fetch, pass in the endpoint. Then we need to specify the method, and this is going to be the post method. We also need to include headers. So we will have content type set to application JSON. And then we need to add some authorization. So this is the place where we are going to use our configuration object. And let's add this header authorization. And again, I'm using backticks right now. So it's going to be bearer and then configuration. And then we need to access the API key. All right. So as the next step, we are going to pass in the body JSON stringify, and we will pass in the body like this. And let's add a variable data and await response JSON. And then let's console log the data and see if this is actually working. Are we going to get a response from the OpenAI API, or we did something wrong? Okay, so I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to refresh the page and write hello and submit, and we have some error. Temperature. Okay, so I think I made a spelling mistake. Temperature. Okay. I'm going to hit refresh. Hello. Submit. Form is submitted, and there it is. Okay, so we have a response, and let's go to choices, and this is actually the response that we want to grab. Okay, so in order to do this, what we need to do is to go back to Visual Studio Code, and we are now going to use this set CB response to update the state of the CB response. So over here, let's write set CB response, and then we are going to write data choices 0 text. Okay, so this is how we access this particular response. Okay, so choices 0 text. All right, now we can also add the spinner. So I'm going to import the spinner from React Bootstrap, and initially isLoading is set to false. So I'm going to copy set isLoading, and then I'm going to put it over here and set it to true. Then I'm going to delete this console log line of code, and then I'm going to also delete the console log data. Below the set CB response, I'm going to simply set isLoading back to false. All right, so this should work. However, in order to see the spinner, we want to go back to our return statement, and somewhere below the form, let's create just an ordinary div with the class name of margin top 3. And then over here, using the ternary operator, we are going to see if we have this loading set to true. And if this is the case, we are going to then display the spinner. And in other case, what we are going to do is to check if we have the CB response. So CB response, and here again we are going to use the ternary operator, and then if this is the case we are going to display the CB response. In other case we are going to display no question asked. All right, so let's see if this will work or not. Hello there. Okay, we have a response. Hi there, how are you doing? Let's translate it. Submit. And let's see what we will get with the weather. And answer this. Okay, what is the weather like in Spain? The weather in Spain varies depending on the region, but generally it is mild with hot, dry summers and cool, wet winters. Alright guys, so this is working. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and we will see each other in the next one. Take care and bye bye.